We often refer to cash as the inevitable asset class, but it's also the one that is frequently the least optimized.
Hello and welcome to FinTech Insider Spotlight. I'm Benjamin Ensor, Director of Research and Strategy here at 11FS. In this show, we shine a spotlight on the best and the brightest in the tech and financial services sectors to get to know them, their businesses, and what they think the future of the industry will look like. On today's Spotlight, I'm delighted to be joined by John Martin, Chief Product Officer of Flagstone, which is a platform used by consumers, companies, and their advisors to manage cash alongside their other investments. Welcome to the show, John. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Thanks very much for having me.
And I understand that you are growing a moustache for Movember. Can you tell viewers a little bit about that?
Yes, there's a team of us at Flagstone growing our moustaches out, which look ridiculous. So if anyone can help us out there and actually make it worthwhile for a very worthy cause, that'd be much appreciated.
Fantastic. So on this show, we're going to talk about how Flagstone is helping advisors wake up the UK's sleeping savings, make cash planning part of holistic portfolios, and deliver better outcomes for clients. But let's start with your career journey to date. Did you wish to be a product manager as a child? What's your path to becoming a product manager?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess my background is atypical of a chief product officer in that I'm essentially on my second career, even though I feel far too young to be making statements like that. I was an army officer for just over 11 years. I served in the parachute regiment and was fortunate enough to do a lot of interesting things all around the world, which was fantastic. As I moved out of that, I kind of moved into change management within financial services and then eventually into product. So then I joined Flagstone about 7.5 years ago as the first person in the product team. Since that time, there has been kind of growth in every possible direction. So our number of clients, our assets, number of colleagues that we have has all grown kind of 10, 20-fold. So it's been a really, really interesting journey and essentially all been about us delivering change at scale and maintaining high quality and maintaining a client focus, which is absolutely key to everything we do. And so from the advisor side in particular, we work with around 6,000 advisors, and they are a great source of intelligence and information about how we can make our product better. So one thing that we constantly do is always ensure that we're always learning. So we have a dedicated user research team who engage with our clients, our advisors, and we learn things from them on a daily basis. And we try to be as client focused as possible. And as I say, try to maintain that quality bar high as we've scaled up and continue to do so. Like probably our most exciting phases of growth are probably still ahead of us, which is really engaging.
So you're getting lots of feedback from the advisors. Is there like a few who sort of constantly giving you feedback, or are you systematically going out there and trying to gather that feedback?
A bit of both, actually. So we're fortunate that we have a very engaged user base, be that the advisors or be that clients who are happy to tell us what their views are. And as a product person, that kind of thing is absolute gold dust. So it's amazing to be able to engage with them and get their views. And it's probably, I'd say, a mixture between someone who will tell you 1,000 times what they think and someone who will just engage once and give you their one bit of candid feedback. But equally, there are fantastic bits in there that are really actionable. So we find that incredibly helpful.
You said you were really excited about the future and the potential to sort of keep growing the business as you have been doing for the past few years. Is that because you see opportunities to grow into other markets, other countries? Do you see ways to do new things for the customers you've already got? Or is it simply that the opportunity in front of you is so big and there's so much more to come from that?
Well, yeah, firstly, the opportunity is absolutely enormous. And so while we've grown quite a lot of it, as I'd alluded to earlier, we've not yet penetrated the size of that opportunity. It is simply enormous. So we are very focused on the cash savings space. Within that, there is one piece that was kind of glaringly obvious for us to add to our product offering, which was cash ISAs. So we're going to be bringing that out early next year. And so while we are constantly developing new things and new ways to engage with our clients, it's primarily about us deepening our penetration into that space.
So for people who are watching this who maybe don't know Flagstone, who've not come across Flagstone, perhaps people in other countries and so on, can you give us just a quick introduction to what Flagstone is, the problems you're solving and for whom?
Yeah. So I'll take that in reverse order, I suppose, is for whom. The answer to that question is actually a very broad range of users. So we mentioned there that we work with advisors quite a lot and their clients. We have individual and joint clients coming direct. We have SMEs, we have charities, and we have trusts, all of whom have slightly different needs. But essentially, at its core, what we allow our clients to do is onboard one single time with Flagstone, and then they can open savings accounts with any one of 72 different banks. So that allows them to firstly maximize or optimize their interest income, but it also allows them to spread or mitigate risk when it comes to FSCS protection. So if someone is holding over 85,000 in one specific bank, then they run the risk that if that bank were to go bust, they would get the 85,000 back, but the rest of their deposit would be lost. And if you were to do that kind of on an individual basis, the overhead is enormous. So if you can imagine trying to open 10 or 20 different bank accounts with different banks, then it becomes a huge overhead. And so what we allow our clients to do is essentially remove all of the friction from that journey. And what we're really trying to battle is the inertia that exists in that space. So there are, I think it's about 2/3 of savings accounts are earning far below the base rate, and the vast majority of people hold their cash savings with one single bank. So allowing people to diversify in such a frictionless way is really at its core what we offer people.
Of course, not that many people are lucky enough to have more than £85,000 in savings, but plenty of people do. But you also, I suppose more to the point, is it's the companies, it's the trusts and so on, charities and so on. Does the FSCS, Financial Services Compensation Scheme, I think it is, does that apply to businesses and trusts and charities as well, or does it just apply to individuals?
No, it applies to businesses and trusts as well, certain types of trusts, admittedly, but the vast majority of our clients are FSCS eligible, so they benefit from that as well. And then from the SME side specifically, where liquidity management is so important and a very different, or not a very different, but a somewhat different set of needs from an individual, and also the kind of trends that they are saving cash from can differ from an individual quite significantly, whether that is an individual sells a house and is holding a large amount of cash for a short period of time, as opposed to a business that is generating cash and needs to have kind of effective liquidity management in order to make the most of the opportunities that they have.
Yeah, so you've got some very different use cases there for different customers. But for all of them, there's this benefit of a single platform where I can keep presumably shopping around to some extent to find a better interest rate without having to constantly open new accounts and without having to sort of move money between institutions, I suppose not manually, but so you're really simplifying that for customers.
Exactly, yes. And so as well as the protection side of it, when rates are so changeable in particular, you may not be tempted to move bank because of that overhead if you're doing it yourself directly. Whereas if you are on a savings platform, you could move from bank A to bank B to bank C relatively quickly without actually needing to onboard with those underlying banks.
I'm sure there'll be some companies watching this who are quite interested, because for an individual, you probably don't need to move. I mean, you need to move money from time to time, but how quickly you move the money, it could be a day or so. But for a company, as you were saying earlier, they need to move money very quickly, sometimes because they've got payroll or whatever. How quickly can customers on your platform move money from, let's say, one bank to a building society or whatever? How quick is that process?
In most cases, the instructions are processed within one working day, but we do offer different types of accounts. We offer notice accounts and term accounts. So the specifics of that particular product would determine how long it takes to move cash out or move it elsewhere. The fact that we offer those different accounts is a real benefit to our SME clients in particular, because they're able to manage liquidity over different horizons, and giving them that predictability of when the funds are coming back in, knowing that it's safe, knowing that they're optimizing their interest is a huge advantage.
One of the things you announced recently is that you'd integrated with Intelliflo, which is a financial advisor platform. Can you sort of tell people what does that mean for advisors? How does that change the experience for sort of Intelliflo's clients? What's the benefit or the purpose of that partnership and collaboration?
So what we were aiming to do there is get our proposition closer to where advisors do their work. So there are many thousands of advisors in the UK that use Intelliflo. So we wanted to make that process as frictionless as possible, whether that is them referring clients to Flagstone or viewing their existing clients within Flagstone. So really it's about just removing one barrier in order to get our proposition in the hands of advisors so that they can make use of it as part of an overall strategy. And that is, something that we are really passionate about, is the fact that we often refer to cash as the inevitable asset class, but it's also the one that is frequently the least optimized. And it can be a core part of somebody's investment strategy if it's done well, and we enable advisors to do that.
You're right. It is a sort of forgotten part of the portfolio,
yeah.
isn't it? It's like, oh, well, put 5% or 10% in cash and then just sort of leave it. And essentially you're saying, don't just leave it.
Yes, yeah.
But someone who's got a financial advisor, it's probably, by definition, they're getting advice. They're probably managing their money, fairly efficiently or fairly well because the advisor's giving them guidance and advice. But of course, there are many people in Britain, just like everywhere else in the world, who don't have a financial advisor. And then you get this kind of inertia where people just sit. Cash just sits in bank accounts. Maybe the rate was quite good when they first opened the account, but 3 years later, 5 years later, it isn't. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're trying to sort of wake up some of that cash that's just sitting there, the sort of millions or maybe even billions of cash just sitting in bank accounts earning next to nothing?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's certainly in the billions. And we recently did a sleeping savings campaign, which is very much focused on that actually there's so much potential out there for people to optimize their interest income and, as I say, mitigate risk that people are not aware of. And often we have what we refer to when we're doing our user research actually is the eureka moment of when someone understands what it is that they could do and how they could optimize their cash savings, and suddenly they get it. What we try to do as much as possible is bring that forward. And so raising awareness about it is really kind of one of the key things that we want to do. And we're also in a situation now where, albeit rates are declining, we're in a position where cash savings actually generate a meaningful return for people. So that the cost of that inertia is becoming more and more significant. And even though, as I say, with interest rates coming down, there are no projections that would suggest that it's going back to kind of pre-COVID levels by any stretch. And if you take a kind of more zoomed out view around interest rates, it's very much the period between the financial crisis and COVID that's the outlier. So we expect to see those normalizing over the coming years, but that situation remains that inertia is an expensive thing to have.
What do you think is behind that inertia? Is it a lack of awareness? Is it laziness? Is it people don't understand? They don't know? Well, I'm sure it's many things, but what from the work you've done, what have you found are some of the primary causes of that inertia?
Yeah, I think it is a combination of those things, certainly. And because we have had now, I suppose it's getting on for nearly 20 years of people being used to the fact that they couldn't get a meaningful return from cash, that they wouldn't focus on it. So there's certainly a learned behavior there, and people haven't yet woken up fully to the opportunities that sit in front of them. And also there's the overhead of trying to do that yourself. So the reason Flagstone exists is that we can remove that friction for people. So as people become aware of the fact that they can self-serve in this world and get very good outcomes, then we will slowly but surely break down that inertia.
You mentioned earlier that you were planning to launch some new cash individual savings accounts, obviously better known as ISAs, in, I think, early next year.
That's right, yeah.
What's behind that? What's your sort of thinking as a product manager behind that? Why are you doing that?
So it's something that we have been very interested in for quite a long time. So as I'd mentioned earlier, we are very focused on the cash space. We have no intention at this stage to go in any other directions. That is really where we are focused. But there's an obvious piece to add to that, which would have been cash ISA. So we have taken quite a long time about ensuring that we research it very thoroughly with our existing clients and with our prospective clients, and to keep our quality bar high. So to some extent, it always seems like an obvious thing to have added, but we have been kind of very deliberate in the way that we've gone about that. So what we will be launching early next year is the ability for someone to hold all of their cash ISA holdings in one single place with Flagstone, spread across multiple banks without ever having to leave the ISA wrapper. So they could move from bank A to bank B to bank C, all within the ISA wrapper.
Which is huge. Yeah.
Yes, which is a huge benefit. And also there's a historic trend of people, as you mentioned before, particularly who were advised, who would have maximized their ISA allowance over a number of years, and so may have built up a really meaningful portfolio there, but haven't been able to optimize it in the way that we could help them do.
For viewers outside the UK, the individual savings account protects a certain amount of cash from tax. Therefore, it's a significant tax benefit for as long as it lasts.
Yes,
Which is an open question.
Yeah, so there are obviously moves afoot to bring that allowance down. We are hoping that doesn't happen, and it doesn't seem like it would be a great outcome for UK consumers. But nonetheless, even if that subscription amount does come down, there's still a huge amount of value in being able to manage your cash savings and cash ISA in one single place.
I'd love to ask you a little bit about distribution, because you were talking earlier about the partnership with Intelliflo and sort of partnering with platforms to increase your distribution, but you also go direct to customer as well. Is there a sort of deliberate strategy of more direct to consumer, more sort of B2B2C? Do you do both? Do you just go with what works? How do you think about your distribution strategy?
Yeah, we try to do them all because we see value in all of those spaces, and ultimately what we want to do is deliver value to our clients and get our proposition in front of as many clients as possible. And as I mentioned before, we have a very kind of broad gambit of who those clients are and where they come from, and we try to keep that as broad as we possibly can because we want as many people as possible to engage with it and realize the value of the proposition.
So one of the things you said earlier was you talked about how many banks and building societies Flagstone works with. And it's a really impressive number, because while there is obviously a lot of banks and building societies in the UK, a lot of them are sort of branches of foreign firms and so on. So to have got to 70 or however many you have is hugely impressive. How long has it taken to sort of build up all of those relationships?
A long time. So Flagstone has existed since 2013. So that is quite a long period of time now. The way in which we partner with our banks is so important to us and to them. It is a mutually beneficial arrangement in that we obviously need their products in order for our service to exist, and we are able to provide them with kind of strong, predictable flows when they're trying to raise assets. So it's a key part to what we do, is building those relationships, and it is non-trivial, obviously, because there are different banks who have different needs and different requirements, and we try to satisfy those as much as we can, as I say, focus on it being a mutually beneficial arrangement.
You've talked about sort of three different groups: sort of individual savers, advised clients, through their advisors, and the SMEs. Which of those are actually have the most sort of volume on Flagstone? Which is the sort of most important to your business?
I'd be struggling to say one is more important than the other, because they're all very important to us. And as I said, part of our strategy is to be very diverse in the types of clients that we are able to serve. Numbers-wise, we have more individual clients than we do
because there's more
SMEs.
Individuals out there.
There are more of them, exactly. But as we've touched on here, there are reasons why the proposition is particularly compelling to SMEs, for example. So we have a very strong product market fit in both of those spaces, and it'd be remiss of me as a product person not to try and push into both of those areas.
Because we talked earlier about the sort of sleeping savings and the fact that millions of savers in Britain maybe haven't really thought about the impact of inflation on the long-term value of their savings, and they're therefore not optimizing them. Do you think the situation within small businesses is similar, or do you think small businesses are a little bit more astute about their finances? Because often there's a professional accountant or someone actually running the financial side of the business. Would you say, do you feel the SMEs are a little bit more on top of their cash, or not really?
I would say they're probably more astute because they are professionals, but they are kind of critically underserved actually in the savings world.
Okay, so it's an underserved is more the problem.
Yeah, very much so. And so a lot of what we are doing right now is kind of creating awareness around that. So yes, it's not a kind of lack of knowledge issue, because as you say, these people are professionals at managing their cash. It's very much being underserved and missing out on billions and billions every year in interest income that they could be making.
Presumably one of the challenges for businesses is getting money onto Flagstone and off Flagstone. How easy is it for sort of small businesses to move money in and out of Flagstone?
So increasingly easy, actually. So something that we have worked on a lot over the last couple of years, and we will continue to optimize, is our online onboarding journey for SMEs. So we have made that as frictionless as possible to get funds onto the Flagstone platform. That said, there is some of that friction that is necessary, because we need to maintain a very high level of AML and KYC, because we need to meet the highest standard of any one of our banks. So that is a threshold that we don't move. What we do is kind of engineer out any unnecessary friction in that journey. And we're now in a position where it is slick in order to onboard with Flagstone as an SME, and we will keep optimizing it.
So you've talked about, so many different things that you've been doing at Flagstone over the past few years. What are you excited about sort of looking forward? Where do you see sort of the opportunities for either for growth for Flagstone or for people and companies to manage their money better?
In terms of growth for Flagstone, as I say, our overall strategy is not about us kind of going in different directions, either geographically or into other types of proposition. We are poised in a very strong position now to actually deepen our penetration into this market. So as we've mentioned, it's an enormous opportunity, and we are now very well positioned to execute on that. So it's really about iterative improvement for us. So it's a very exciting couple of years ahead for us, because we've had quite a lot of moving parts that we've kind of gradually got into place now, and we really feel that we can execute at speed and really start to capitalize on this. One of those areas is SMEs specifically, actually, because, as I say, we have a very strong product market fit with that client type, and part of what we are going to be doing over the next kind of months and years is making sure that we are cutting through to that audience effectively, and making them aware of exactly what the opportunities are for them in order to manage their cash more effectively.
I see more partnerships in your future, perhaps.
Quite possibly, yeah.
For any sort of financial advisors or business owners or even individuals watching this, do you have any sort of message or tips about just thinking about cash? What should people be thinking about?
So my highly objective answer to that would be to become a Flagstone client as soon as possible. But if I was to take off my Flagstone tinted glasses, it would actually be to take the time to review the cash that you're holding. As I said earlier, the cost of that inertia is real, and every day it costs you something. So take the time to have a look at it, and you will find that it's time well spent, because the chances are there's optimization to be done there, and some of it could be hugely significant. So it's worth taking 5-10 minutes just to sit down and think about it, and then become a Flagstone client.
Thank you. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, but we're running out of time. Thank you so much for joining me. Where can people find out a little bit more about you and everything you're getting up to, and a little bit more about Flagstone?
So firstly, thanks so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure on my side. So in terms of finding out about Flagstone, our website is a great place to get information. Similarly, LinkedIn, and also about myself, LinkedIn is probably the best place. And if someone felt so inclined to contribute towards our Movember space, that is also on there.
Fantastic. All right, well, that's all that we have time for. So please do make sure that you follow 11FS to stay updated with all the things that we're up to. And if you enjoy the show, please do subscribe to the 11FS YouTube channel, where you can also catch up on previous episodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.